Welcome to Headline Hub Updates. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. The first reports trickled in, a massive Russian push on a quiet sector of the front. At first, it seemed like just another maneuver in a long, grinding conflict, but the scale quickly became apparent. Rumors swirled among soldiers and journalists alike, each new message more alarming than the last. Then, almost overnight, the world's attention snapped to a small, unassuming town in eastern Ukraine, Toretsk. Once a name barely known outside its own borders, it suddenly became the epicenter of global headlines. The headlines were stark: 50,000 men lost. The numbers flashed across screens and newspapers, sending shockwaves through military circles and civilian populations alike. It was a number so immense it defied belief, more fitting for an entire war than a single battle. The sheer scale of the loss was almost impossible to comprehend, leaving families and communities reeling. The fields around Toretsk, once quiet and green, became a stadium of death. Craters and wreckage scarred the landscape, a grim reminder of the violence that had erupted so suddenly. This was not just another skirmish, it was a turning point. The intensity of the fighting marked a new chapter in the war, one that would be remembered for its brutality and scale. News channels broadcast drone footage of wrecked Russian armor and the haunting stillness of fallen soldiers. The images were broadcast around the world, searing themselves into the public consciousness. Analysts struggled to find historical parallels for such catastrophic loss in modern warfare. Even seasoned historians were left speechless, unable to recall a single engagement in recent memory with such devastating consequences. Toretsk, once unknown, was now a symbol of military disaster. Its name became synonymous with tragedy, echoing through newsrooms and war rooms across the globe. On the ground, the air was thick with cordite and death. The acrid smoke clung to everything, and the faces of soldiers told stories of exhaustion, fear, and loss. The roar of artillery was relentless. Soldiers fought, reloaded, and braced for the next wave. The chaos was unending, with explosions lighting up the night and the ground trembling beneath their feet. The world watched in horror. For the defenders, survival was the only reality. Families clung to hope, glued to their screens, while those on the front lines faced each moment as if it could be their last. The story was one of carnage and a command willing to sacrifice soldiers on an industrial scale. The cost was measured not just in numbers, but in shattered lives and broken communities. Each report painted a picture of a desperate gamble that failed spectacularly. The offensive, meant to break the stalemate, instead became a cautionary tale of hubris and miscalculation. The battle for Toretsk became a brutal testament to the staggering human cost of this war. In the end, it was not just a military defeat, but a tragedy that would haunt all who witnessed it, a reminder of the true price of conflict. Toretsk is not a large city, nestled quietly in the heart of eastern Ukraine, its streets and neighborhoods appearing peaceful at first glance. But its strategic importance is immense, far outweighing its modest size. Toretsk sits at a crossroads, controlling vital routes that connect the front lines to the rest of the Donbas region. It stands as a critical bastion in Ukraine's defensive line, blocking Russian advances and serving as a shield for cities further west. To capture Toretsk would open a path deeper into Ukrainian territory, a key Russia desperately wants. Its fall would threaten the entire Ukrainian position in the east. The town is defended by years of preparation, deep trenches, reinforced bunkers, and deadly minefields, all designed to slow and bleed any attacker. Since 2014, Ukraine has transformed this region into one of the most fortified on Earth, with layer upon layer of defenses stretching for miles. Toretsk is a fortress, designed to bleed any attacker dry, with every approach covered by overlapping fields of fire and hidden strongpoints. For Russia, taking Toretsk was seen as essential to conquering the Donbas. Commanders poured men and machines into the assault, determined to break through. Military planners believed overwhelming force would break the defenses, launching wave after wave of attacks, hoping to find a weak spot. This led to one of the largest and most brutal assaults of the war, with the night sky lit by constant explosions and the thunder of artillery. But the fortress held. Every field and building was prepared for a fight, turning the town into a maze of resistance. Ukrainian defenders knew the terrain intimately and fought for their homeland with unwavering resolve, using every advantage the fortifications offered. The result, a meat grinder for Russian forces, leaving the fields around Toretsk scarred and littered with the wreckage of failed assaults. Russia's plan for Toretsk was brutally simple: overwhelm with sheer numbers. The strategy was not about precision or cunning, but about brute force, relying on the sheer volume of men to break through Ukrainian lines. Waves of regular soldiers, conscripts, and even prisoners were sent forward relentlessly, often with little training or preparation. Each group was pushed into the fray, regardless of their readiness or morale. The idea was chillingly straightforward: drown Ukrainian defenses in bodies, not outsmart them. The hope was that sheer attrition would eventually wear down the defenders. Human wave tactics, a relic of past wars, treated soldiers as expendable resources. The lives of the men were secondary to the objective, echoing the darkest chapters of military history. Each wave advanced, was cut down, and replaced by the next, often forced to climb over the bodies of their fallen comrades. The battlefield became a grim testament to the cost of such tactics. The goal was simple, but brutal: exhaust Ukrainian defenders, sap their strength, and eventually breach the line. Every attack was meant to wear down the defenders, both physically and psychologically. For Russian soldiers, it was a suicide mission: poorly trained, terrified, and trapped between advancing and retreating. Many were sent forward with little hope of survival, their fear evident in every step. Many knew they were being sent to die, caught between enemy fire and the threat of punishment from their own commanders if they refused to advance. The sense of desperation was palpable. This approach failed. The defenders were prepared, disciplined, and determined. Ukrainian forces held their ground, repelling wave after wave with grim resolve. Russia traded thousands of lives for a few meters of earth. The cost was staggering, and the gains were almost non-existent, leaving the land scarred and soaked in blood. The attacks revealed a shocking disregard for life and a desperate reliance on outdated tactics. Commanders seemed indifferent to the mounting losses, focused only on relentless assault. Toretsk became a case study in military futility, a place where lives were spent recklessly, and the only true victory was survival amid the ruins. Ukraine's defense was a blend of old-school fortification and modern technology. Decade-old trenches and bunkers shielded soldiers from relentless shelling. These positions allowed movement, resupply, and counterattacks under cover. Above, Ukrainian drones spotted Russian troops and guided artillery with deadly precision. FPV drones hunted tanks and infantry, turning no man's land into a killing field. Ukrainian tactics were clever: defense in depth, feigned retreats, and kill zones. Attackers were lured into traps and annihilated by hidden fire. This flexible approach turned Russia's numerical advantage into a liability. The shield was more than concrete and tech. It was forged from unbreakable will. Defenders fought for home and nation, motivated by a cause. Their spirit contrasted sharply with demoralized Russian conscripts. Toretsk became a symbol of Ukrainian defiance and tactical brilliance. The battlefield around Toretsk was a nightmare: scorched, cratered, unrecognizable. Destroyed Russian tanks and vehicles littered the fields, some still smoldering. Personal belongings among the wreckage were haunting reminders of lost lives. Survivors carry memories seared by trauma. Medics faced impossible choices under fire, haunted by the cries of the wounded. Back in Russia, thousands of families waited for news that would never come. These silent tragedies multiplied into a wave of grief. Even victors bear deep scars. The psychological toll is immense. The echoes of Toretsk will haunt generations. The numbers from Toretsk are staggering: 50,000 Russian casualties in weeks. This loss dwarfs Soviet losses in Afghanistan and is nearly unprecedented in modern warfare. In return, Russia gained almost nothing: meters, not kilometers. The main Ukrainian lines held. The offensive failed spectacularly. Hundreds of Russian armored vehicles were destroyed, leaving tank graveyards. These losses are hard to replace, degrading Russia's future capabilities. The operation was a brutal indictment of Russian leadership. Repeated assaults into a meat grinder showed incompetence or chilling indifference. Toretsk will be remembered as a case study in military malpractice. It's a stark reminder that brute force is no substitute for strategy. Toretsk is part of a pattern. Repeated Russian mistakes in Ukraine. Frontal assaults, poor coordination, and underestimating Ukraine have led to disaster before. A rigid, centralized command stifles adaptation and initiative. Orders are followed blindly, even if suicidal. Russia's reliance on expendable troops contrasts with Western doctrine. Their approach leads to high casualties and self-inflicted attrition. Toretsk is the latest, most brutal example of this strategic failure. Ukraine's defense at Toretsk was a story of spirit and unity. Soldiers were citizens, teachers, farmers, IT workers, fighting for their homeland. This personal motivation gave them resilience artillery couldn't break. Courage, ingenuity, and skill defined every aspect of the defense. Medics and support staff risked everything to save lives. The defense was a collective effort, supported by civilians across Ukraine. Volunteers provided supplies, aid, and morale. This unity created a powerful sense of purpose. Toretsk became a symbol of Ukrainian resistance and hope. It proved that a nation united in a just cause can overcome brute force. When the dust settles, Toretsk stands as a grim monument to senseless tragedy. 50,000 lives lost for a few hundred meters of scorched earth. There is no glory, only sorrow for the immense waste. The true price of ground is measured in bodies. Russia's strength was squandered by poor strategy and disregard for life. Sending men to die in waves is not a strategy. It's a confession of failure. For Ukraine, victory came at a heavy price. Every fallen defender is irreplaceable. Survivors will carry scars for life. The nation bears the burden. Even in success, the cost is immense. Toretsk is a lesson brute force leads only to graveyards. If we forget the true price, we are doomed to repeat this senseless sorrow.